Hello, Colts Nation. What's up, No Horsing family? And that's right, you guys saw it. There's a brand new intro. Season 2. We told you guys we'd wait till after the draft. Season 2 of No Horsing Around is here. As always, I'm one of two dudes talking Colts. I'm one of your hosts, Steven, and I'm joined by my boy, Zach. I'm excited, man. We're going to have some fun tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just going to kind of do a little bit of a draft recap, talking about some just different odds and ends questions, just things and thoughts that we've had after we've had a little bit of time to kind of, I guess, a week now, right, to start digesting things a little bit. And I'm excited, man. Season 2. I mean, this is the backstory of the No Horsing Around podcast. We kind of got going around this time last year. You know, we were having conversations. We were talking about, hey, you know, when can we get our first one out? And lo and behold, we've had a pretty good, you know, show, I would say, if I want to pat my own self on the back. And we've had an awesome, just a following from the people on No Horsing Around. Like, it just amazes me how people find us, how many people interact with us. It's pretty cool. If you haven't had a chance to join the No Horsing Around family, smash that subscribe button. You know, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. If you're here anyways, join the family, use your voice. This is always a podcast, like we've said in the past. This is the Colts community voice. Come here, use your voice. We'll shout you out. Even if you don't agree with us, we'll still shout you out. We don't care. Do you care?
Absolutely.
I don't
Absolutely.
care. Yeah.
I mean, we've had people, we always joke, you know, from week 1 to now is herbicide. You know, that's a Seahawks fan who subscribed and stuck around. I'm partial to the Ravens fans myself. They tend not to like me too much. We'll see how that carries over into the new season. See if that stays in season 1 or if that happens in season 2. And, you know, we've been really lucky, very blessed, like you said, too, to be able to get to know a lot of other content creators, not just inside the Colts organization, inside the Colts community, but, you know, everybody from Jason Aponte out in the 49er land to Jets Talk 24/7 to Ing Ravens, who's stayed in contact with us loosely throughout this process too, who, you know, we can call on and reach out to and ask questions to. And, you know, they're more than accommodating. And then, I mean, even me and you have talked the idea that we are actually, so a peek behind the curtain for you guys a little bit over the last year. You know, we've worked really hard to build, and we were media credentialed for the Senior Bowl. I think we probably, if we had wanted to, we probably could have done the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Definitely the combine with you being in Indianapolis. We are actually inside. We've been able to do media availability for the Colts. So during this offseason, look for some of that, like last year, talking to Michael Strawn and Kylan Granson. You know, we'll be able to do stuff like that again. And that's because of the No Horsing family. So we want to take this time to just thank you guys.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't have said it better. Excited about the show. Let's just kind of kick it off, dive right in like we always do. Alec Pierce, man. Hearing a lot of comps out there. A lot of people compare him to Jordy Nelson. You know, I think it's I don't know. You know, I mean, I can understand it. I can see it from a size and a stature standpoint. I think they're a little bit different, though, Steven. I think Alec Pierce is a much better at going and getting those go balls, you know, just running pure vertical, you know, just deep routes and using that body control. He's really, really good on those back shoulder fades as well. He can high point a football, no doubt about it. And I think Jordy Nelson, probably, to be fair, was quite a bit better and more developed as a route runner. But Alec Pierce, they seem to really feel like that is teachable. You know, they feel like that's something that Alec Pierce can kind of develop into. And I don't want to have any, illusions this year with Alec Pierce. He's a second-round draft pick. He's probably going to see numbers pretty similar to what you saw out of Michael Pittman Jr. in his rookie year. We obviously know the jump that Pittman Jr. took after that. But I would just say that he's going to compete. He's going to contribute. And he's going to add an element to our team that has just not been there, honestly. Like, we haven't had someone who could literally just beat you over the top, and just saying, hey, just play action and let's just go. Let's just let Pierce go up and make a play. So I think that's where he'll shine as a rookie. And then as that season progresses, and then you get into another offseason as being a pro, working with guys like Reggie Wayne, who has high praise for him. then that's when that route running starts to really develop, and he starts to gel that chemistry, with Matt Ryan, and he's got a really good leader. All indications, Matt Ryan, he's checking every freaking box right now, man. I mean, they are loving him in Indy. He's saying all the right things, doing all the right things. So I would say pretty freaking happy and pretty freaking excited about the future of the Colts football team in general. We'll get into some other draft picks later, but just Alec Pierce, man, what do you think?
I mean, I like it. Everything that you said about it, those are all great things. I think, I've taken some of this. You listen to Reggie, Coach Wayne, and some of his interviews talking to, and I think he gets the idea, seeing the behind the scenes, seeing how excited he was to get Alec, seeing him at the facility, seeing them interact. I really like that, and really, and for anybody who hasn't watched for the with the next pick, the final episode, y'all need to go watch that because it's amazing in regards to the fact that the 3 guys that we got, they all wanted them, and they felt they could only get any of them at 42. So to get them all was amazing.
Yeah.
I heard something on the radio that I thought really equated well to him. He's a big body receiver. He's very fast, but he doesn't shy away from contact and trying to go up for that ball. Kind of like we've talked about. We've kind of been waiting, and last year we saw a little bit more with Pittman, which was kind of going up those jump balls. And a great, you always talk about, ambient players, right?
Yeah.
And this was one that I'm going to steal from Tennessee radio is combat catchers. And I thought it was so described what feels like a chunk of our wide receiver room right now, which is they are not afraid of a little bit of combat in the air. They're going to go up and get it. And I think Pierce fits in really well with that, watching some of his highlights, obviously, some of his tape. He's a go up and get the ball. I thought it was really interesting, too, to hear Ballard mention they had looked at him, but they went to work out Desmond Ridder, and he really caught their eye at that workout.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm excited about it. I'm excited because I think we all knew you had to add some more talent to the wide receiver room. And it's turning into a deeper room. I still think there's moves that have to be made. T.Y. Hilton, potentially. I'm not sure. But I think you still need – I mean, me and you talked about it last week. There's not a true veteran presence still in that room. I mean, you can count Reggie Wayne potentially as the coach.
Yeah.
But a veteran on the field, they probably still need that. But, I mean, I'm excited to see how he looks. I mean, you're talking – if all pans out correctly, like let's say it all pans out, you got Pittman, Pierce on the outside, and Campbell if he can stay healthy in the slot. And then we got these tight ends that we can talk about later. And the offense is looking good. And you've got like you said, you've got kind of the trigger man that I don't think I've heard a negative thing about Matt Ryan come out of Indianapolis. I've now heard Irsay say 3 to 4 years is what they're hoping for. You've heard Reggie Wayne say he reminds him so much of Peyton Manning, it makes him want to puke. I mean, it's looking good,
praise.
man.
That's high praise. And, kind of getting back on the last, topic of Alec Pierce, he's going to be a different type of receiver. He's not going to be your prototypical volume receiver like a Pittman will be, a guy who's going to go out there and just catch a lot of passes. But for him to affect a game, he only needs the ball in his hands 2 or 3 times. 60 yards over the top for a touchdown makes a huge impact for this football team. And that's what he did in Cincinnati. He didn't have these gaudy numbers. Like, he didn't even have 1,000 yards receiving last year, but he had 50 catches for over 800 yards. So what's that tell me? He gets big chunk plays. Like that's what he does. And that's what they brought him here for, to have big chunk plays and then eventually develop some of that underneath stuff, running a true NFL route tree. Let's pivot on over to, you did a great piece earlier on Jelani Woods with the podcast. If you guys haven't had a chance to check that one out, go over and check out Steven on that podcast. He did a great job. I think it's up 1.6 thousand have already checked it out.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we've got
my mind
on that one. But what's not to like about a guy who's 6'7", 260 pounds and runs 4.6 in a 40 and literally will run you over if you are in his way. Like he is the one thing that I really took away from kind of diving in a little bit deeper. Little pat on my back too, by the way. Did pick him to be our 3rd round pick.
Go back and watch it.
Go back
Totally
and
called
watch
it.
it.
I texted you.
Go fact check that. Hey, I got a D+ on the Draft Network for doing that, and I ain't no D+ player, brother. I'm just telling you that right now. But anyways, he does not avoid contact. Like, he is okay with being in the middle of things. And I can see him quickly becoming a fan favorite for the Indianapolis Colts, man. I mean, he's got a lot of upside. And for me, Steven, honestly, I think they hit on something here, man. Like, I think they hit on something a little bit different. Like, there's just so many tight ends that are just good in the NFL, but not really great. I mean, you think about, the George Kittles, the Travis Kelce's, the Darren Wallers. Like, those guys are special. Like, they separate themselves so much from everybody else. And I really feel like the Jelani, this isn't going to happen overnight, but as he, trends in the right direction, we know that Frank Reich loves using tight ends, loves using double tight ends. This guy's a willing blocker, so he's going to have that, and he's a very, very fluid route runner. I like his suddenness in and out of his breaks to be that big and to be able to actually do some of those things. And you were speaking about, with the next pick earlier. It's kind of funny how they were talking about a guy who was just a freaky player, before the draft even happened. And that was Jelani Woods, man. I mean, 100% to a T, because that's what he is. I know that you feel pretty good about him, but I'll let you say something on this podcast. Just thoughts on him, and what do you feel about him being a Colt?
I mean, he is, for me, he's my favorite pick. Yeah. He's probably my favorite pick of the entire draft because of what you hit on too. We know Ballard has been kind of Jack Doyle was great, right? But they have been looking for that tight end, and I know it's a blasphemous name, and y'all can blow me up in the comments, but since Eric Ebron left, that dynamic playmaker, I know there it is. It's let it all come. I mean, but they've been looking. They looked for Trey Burton. They went and got him, and they tried to do the things. They've been looking for that dynamic playmaker. And think about, I know Luck was the quarterback that year, but the difference in how the offense looks when you have that. And this guy is just like, he's otherworldly with his size. He's what I said earlier too. He's a combat catcher. Go watch his highlights. He's not afraid to go up and go get the ball. He reminds me, I don't know where I would comp him with someone, but like for Colts wise, he's at this point, he's a more polished Mo Alley Cox, right? Size wise, things like that. I had someone in the comments of the other video mention to me how long it's taken Mo Alley Cox to adjust to playing tight end. And I think the difference that people have to realize with those two is Mo Alley Cox never played football until he got to the Colts. And Woods he was a quarterback at Oklahoma State his first year, but by the end of that, he had transitioned to a tight end. So he's had several years playing D1, high-level D1 football as a tight end, and really burst on the scene this past season. So, I mean, size, speed, and the idea that you could put him with a Mo Alley Cox. I mean, the question that I've had coming out of this is, where does this leave Kylan Granson? Does he take a step? Is because let's not forget we don't delve a lot into the really later round picks, but they did double dip at tight end too, and went out and got Ogletree from Youngstown State, who's another one of those big bodied tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, if I'm Granson and I see what happened on draft day, I'm gonna work my ass off this offseason, to secure my spot. And the one problem with Granson over the others is that he really hasn't been a great blocker. He never was a great blocker, even coming out of college. But if you're not going to be a great blocker, then you're going to have to be a great route runner, a great pass catcher, right? Like, you're going to have some tool that keeps you on that field. Well, what they've done is they've put together a very, very good tight end room now. Like, everybody's going to have to stretch themselves, grow, get better. I actually think that Mo's going to kind of fall back into the Jack Doyle role, where he's doing a lot more inline blocking, because he became really solid at that last year, I feel like. I think Jelani and Granson will be your pass catching tight ends for the most part. And when you get in the red zone, I mean, if you got somebody 6'7", running down the field, I mean, that's a huge catch radius with that speed and that suddenness to be able to break those routes in and out. Such a valuable weapon, in those situations. Little play action dive, with Jonathan Taylor. Next thing you know, you've got Jelani Woods coming out of the backfield and wide open in the back corner. Matt Ryan hitting them there. I can see that happening already. I think he will have a pretty solid rookie year, and I think he will contribute pretty quickly, honestly. I mean, you want to look at the way that Kyle Pitts was used last year. A really good athlete. I'm not comparing the two whatsoever, but I mean, he is willing to throw to his tight end if his tight end can make plays. Like, he's not going to shy away from that. So, yeah, very, very good.
Well, and a fun fact, too, when you think about it with him, someone brought this up to me, is I think of Trey Burton. You remember Trey Burton did a lot of like sweeps, and he would hold the ball, run the ball, maybe throw the ball, obviously because of Philly special. Someone brought instantly up to me is, Jelani's a former quarterback.
Yeah.
He might there. I think Frank's going to have a lot of fun with him. And like you mentioned, red zone. I know Granson's a better receiver, but can you imagine lining Mo Alley-Cox and Jelani up? Just the sheer size of some of those packages that they're going to be able to put out there, where you can just say throw the ball up. And I hadn't thought about the comment you made about Pitts and how well he did last year with Matt Ryan at quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they really developed a nice little relationship even as a rookie. So I can see Woods going out there and getting his fair share. He's just going to have to be ready and study that playbook this offseason. It should be interesting. Going on to the next pick, Bernhard Raimann. I think that's the best value pick that we had in this draft, honestly. I don't think anybody who's a draft nerd like I am would have ever expected him to slide that far and be there in the third round. Like, I didn't think it was going to happen. I mean, I didn't think there's any way that he made it to the third round, especially when they had that run on guards and tackles, so early on. I thought, well, he's a lock to go. I thought he was even in play for pick 42, honestly. Like, I thought this is a possibility. I did see the trade back as probably being the right move after all of those guys ahead of him went. My gut tells me that once Christian Watson went, they were willing to trade back pretty quickly. They were looking for a trade partner, and then they got a pretty good one in that, obviously, with Pierce. But Raimann, man, I know he has a little bit of the knee issues, and that scared some teams off, but I think he's a fluid athlete. He's a smart guy. Seems so much like a Colt guy, and I think he's almost the opposite of what Eric Fisher was last year, because he's such a good pass blocker and he's developed so well in that pass blocking scheme. But he's probably gonna have to get a little bit better in some of his run sets. Eric Fisher was the total opposite. Eric Fisher didn't have a whole lot of trouble run blocking last year. That guy couldn't. I mean, he couldn't pass block me or you. You know what I mean? Like he legitimately just could not stay in front of people because he had lost that explosiveness and that athletic ability with that injury. I think with Raimann, I think eventually he wins the job. They're not going to give it to him. They're going to make him fight for it. But I think his talent will eventually just get to a point where he has to be on the field. And I don't know if that means that you slide Pryor on the inside. I don't know what that means, honestly. But I will say this. I think that when it's all said and done, week 1, probably not your starter. Week 17, probably is your starter, in my opinion. I just think as the season develops, they're going to see something in him. Probably start the season off with some of those jumbo packages, getting 6 linemen out there, just giving him some practice and some good reps in game. And then eventually he will have that opportunity to transition over. And then no matter what, if he has a kind of a red shirt this year, then next year he's probably going to be penciled in as your starter. And if you can get a starting left tackle in the third round, Steven, like for the next 5 or 10 years, you've done a damn good job, man. And I think they did. Like this was the best case scenario for them coming out of this draft with these players at these positions that need. and guys who are actually going to impact. They're not really, Ryman's not really a project. Like he's certainly going to need some coaching, but he is not a project at all.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to note, like you said too earlier, was when you watch with the next pick, all three of these guys, these first three picks, they were all discussed for being picked at 42. And here's the thing, like I want to give credence to the people out there, to the No Horsing family that are sitting here going, that wanted a quarterback with this pick, that wanted to see the potential. I mean, me and you talked throughout the draft. We knew it was kind of sitting there. You had Malik Willis. We know that they liked Malik Willis, obviously not enough to pass on it. But this is your thing too. This is what I want to clarify. These three picks are all impact players, potential impact players at positions of immediate need. Yeah. Your immediate need right now is not a quarterback. You have Matt Ryan. And then after the draft, obviously, we hear Irsay come out, say they're really kind of expecting Matt Ryan for 3 to 4 years. Yeah. So that makes me even kind of, as I sit here on, May 5th, 2022, wonder, are they even going to look at quarterback next year? Is that entering their head at all because of where they're sitting? But I want to give credence to the people who are sitting there going, well, Malik Willis was sitting there. We know they brought him in. Desmond Ridder was sitting there. And all these different things. But you got impact players. Like you said, you have a potential to be your number 2 wideout. You could have a number 1 tight end. Like I went on in that video and said, I feel like that's something that could eventually happen by the end of this year. And a starting left tackle. Yeah. Players, impact positions. We talked about before the draft, there was a lot of holes still sitting there that we felt Ballard needed to fill. And did they have enough picks to do it? And by God, like he did. He filled so many holes.
And then he trades back up into the 3rd round and gets Nick Cross. I mean, holy freaking cow. Chris Ballard just doesn't usually do stuff like that. He's not usually that aggressive, but I love the Nick Cross pick. I think the guy could eventually turn into be an NFL superstar. I really do. Like he plays sideline to sideline. He's got really good ball skills. He can literally fly, man. I mean, he is a fast guy in that defensive backfield for us. I think this puts, Kari Willis on notice too, hey, he's in a contract year. You've got some real depth in that defensive backfield now, and I feel like that really let us down at the end of the season. It kind of broke our back. We just had so many guys filling in that just didn't have enough talent to be on the football field. Even when the Jaguars are sitting there, going up and down the field, left and right on you. Well, you've got guys who really probably should be at best practice squad guys, just camp bodies. Not starting in a game where the playoffs are on the line. You really just didn't need that from those guys at those positions. So Ballard made a real conscientious effort through free agency and the draft to upgrade those positions. I think we are very, very fortunate and in a much better position right now than we were this time last year talking about our defensive backfield. We're not quite as thin. I like an Isaiah Rodgers, Stephon Gilmore cornerback with Kenny Moore in the nickel. I like that, the way that looks. I know you've obviously got some players that you've brought in on some 1-year deals, some Gus Bradley guys from the Raiders. But I think ultimately, it's going to be Rodgers. I think it's going to be Gilmore. I think it's going to be Moore. Then I think you're probably going to start with, I think starting the season, Blackman's probably going to be on IR. They're not going to rush this thing back because you got to feel like with him, with having 2 leg injuries like that this is probably the last chance to get it right. Right. Like you don't want to rush this one back because if he has another one, it's just hard. It would be hard to believe that he could overcome 3 injuries like that in a matter of 3 or 4.
And his explosiveness is a big part of his game.
Yeah. And he's a rare guy, man. I mean, I love him. I mean, I think he is so talented. But I think you start the season probably with Willis and McLeod back there. And then Nick Cross really pushes Kari Willis, a lot like Ryman and Matt Pryor. I think starting the season off, the veterans probably going to get the nod. But as the season goes, look, they're going to find ways to get these playmakers on the field, and they have made it very, very clear that they want dynamic freak athletes, guys who can really, really run, jump, and play the game of football. And I think you don't trade up for that guy if you don't have intentions of him playing sooner rather than later. So for me, absolutely love that. Day two, and I know I'm a homer. We are a Colts podcast. Obviously, I think they had the best day two of anybody. When you're going to talk about filling needs and you want to talk about talent, I mean, we really, really got them. We got better. I mean, we just did, and there was nothing like Ballard always goes out of left field on you usually, and you're like, oh, who the heck? I was not expecting that, but I think those honors went to the New England Patriots this year, by the way. But anyways, that's a sidebar, and that's a whole nother podcast.
Hey, it is what it is. I always float out, I'm not going to badmouth the player because that's my alma mater. That's the highest drafted player from the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga ever.
Yeah.
So that's higher than T.O. people.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, he didn't really go too far out of left field with a lot of the picks. I think it was more of who we liked. Like I liked Watson, you liked Sky. And it was who he liked, and he liked Pierce. Yeah. I mean, it was with receiver, at least with this one, there was it's like going to the ice cream shop. There's a flavor for everybody. It's just what did you settle on? What did you want? And there was more than enough to go around. And I mean, I think if we're doing draft recap too, we'd be remiss if we didn't at least talk about, like you said, we got better. Filled holes. You look now, we've moved up. I mean, it doesn't mean a lot, but you've moved up in the power rankings. I think Pro Football Focus has us at 10. In our biggest competition, who we've joked all the time, I'm not looking who the Bills and the Chiefs, right? I'm looking at who do we need to beat to get into the playoffs, and that's the Titans. And in my opinion, living in Tennessee, listening to the radio and hearing all my friends and hearing it, Titans got worse. Titans most definitely got worse because of what they did. And hear me out. This I want to say this because it makes me laugh. So Treylon Burks, who they picked, right? He is comp to A.J. Brown. That's his pro comp. So the joke that I have is that you had A.J. Brown, you traded A.J. Brown to acquire the person who could potentially become A.J. Brown when you already had A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind.
Well, here's the fascinating part to me. So I'm in agreement from a roster building standpoint, and this is going to get a little bit nerdy here, so guys, don't tune me out. But I mean, this is from a roster building standpoint. When you're having to sign these wide receivers and pay almost quarterback money for them, I'm in agreement that really, and I think the trend of the NFL is going to be this, Stephen. Every 2 or 3 years, you got to draft day one or day two, you got to draft a wide receiver because you can't afford to retain these wide receivers at $25 to $30 million. However, you got a wide receiver and you got a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal. You can go out there, like a great example, you have Jalen Hurts. Philadelphia did the complete opposite and took complete advantage of it. We've got a young quarterback that we're not having to pay, $40 million a year. We can go out there and have an explosive player and pay a wide receiver a little bit more money than market value. Well, the Titans did the same thing. They drafted Malik Willis. Like they literally were set up 1 year from now, and this year didn't matter because A.J. Brown was playing on a 5th-year option. You weren't paying him $25 million this year, so this year doesn't even matter. So to me that is almost blows my mind. Like you've basically said Ryan Tannehill has 1 more year. We're going to bring in Malik Willis probably year 2 to be our starter and kind of move forward in that direction. And all along, you could have kept A.J. Brown with a rookie quarterback and afforded to be able to have some weapons for him. Quite puzzling, quite odd.
Trust me.
But congratulations
I'm telling you, man. Locally here,
we're doing something really, really stupid and making a football team in the NFC a whole lot better.
It made day one for Colts fans so much better.
Oh, I mean,
you didn't have a pick, and you got to see that happen, and you got to see them do that. It's very puzzling. I can tell you this. being very close to it like I am, it's puzzling for a lot of the people who are like inside the team, people who cover the team. It does because honestly, from afar too, it feels like they're it's almost like this weird mini rebuild. You go get your young quarterback, you give away your star wide receiver because you didn't want, and rightfully $25 million. I mean, we were paying if we had kept Carson this year, we were going to be paying him around that, and
Yeah.
as a wide receiver, and one who hasn't been fully healthy, to say the least, too. But it's so weird. You're coming off of a number one overall seed, and that's a big shakeup on that offense. And that's a big trust factor, seeing if Derrick Henry's going to come back and still,
Yeah.
be able to be the second best running back behind JT.
Like I said last year, and everybody laughed at me, but and we all know how that season ended. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think the Tennessee Titans really, honestly, in the last couple of years have made really, really good moves for their football team. This year's quite the opposite. I think that they have taken a step back. I know what they're trying to do. I know that they're trying to get younger at those positions, build that rapport, and not pay a wide receiver crazy money so they can afford to put really good. They believe if they put a really good team around that quarterback and support that quarterback, that's their method to winning. You know, um, and I got to be honest with you, I think their best pick of the draft, honestly, was the Malik Willis pick. I mean, I think that he was a really, really smart pick for them to get him in the third round, a guy who could potentially be a dual threat quarterback for the next 10 years. Like, I mean, we'll see. But I mean, he's got a lot to work on when it comes to throwing the football, but his legs already, man. I mean, he's already dynamic. He's going to be a weapon. Expect to see him maybe in some of that Wildcat stuff, this year and really kind of, spicing things up because they like to get unique and exotic with their run schemes. But yeah, congratulations to the Titans for making us and making our jobs a lot easier because really our path to the playoffs is now winning the AFC South. Just don't worry about anything else. You just go out there and you just win the AFC South. And the Indianapolis Colts have gotten a lot better this offseason. Like, this is, in my opinion, and I have been on Chris Ballard, man. I mean, I have had I've had hard time with Chris Ballard with his decision making, but this has been a really, really sound offseason. I always said this from the very beginning. You don't have to go out there and spend the most money. You don't have to buy every single player, but you have to target 2 or 3 players that will change your team. Like, change your team. And that's what he did. He went out there and targeted Gilmore. He traded for Yannick. And the rest is history. I mean, it's a great trade. It's a great trade for us because obviously you got the replacement for Rock and you really didn't have to give up hardly anything for Yannick. And you got a pass rusher and now you have a clear – I mean, in that pass rushing room, you've got 2 really good edges. Quiddy can go back to that number 2 edge. Yannick can be your number 1. He can be your closer. I think they've got a really, really good, bright future. And I think defensively, we are going to be a much better defensive football team and harder to move the football on this year. I think there's going to be more man concepts. Don't expect us to blitz a lot because Gus Bradley doesn't blitz a lot. He believes in that front 4 getting to the quarterback with just effort and technique and just good coaching. But we'll see, man. I mean, it should be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I think when you say with the front 4 too, like we'll do way more of a deep dive because we're getting ready to go into the abyss that is the true off season, where there's not going to be a whole lot. And we're going to come up with different things like we did last year. But I mean, I think what you said too in the offseason, it'd be remiss to say. I know a lot of people are going to say, "Well, we lucked into Matt Ryan," and Ballard kind of acknowledged that. He was doing his rounds recently on all the national media with Dan Patrick and Rich Eisen, and I don't think he went on Colin Cowherd, but he was doing his rounds, and that was one of the things that they asked PFT. That's it, and they asked him. They're like, "So if you won the last game, Winston's still your quarterback?" And he was totally said, "Probably not." Like that was going to be a thing, and he's fully acknowledged that you do kind of Matt Ryan was kind of this gift from the football gods a little bit with it.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to point out the culture that he's built in Indy made it where Matt Ryan wanted to come to Indy. Like you heard the conversations today and on the radio is that the Falcons reached out to the Colts about Matt Ryan wanting to go to the Colts.
Yeah.
So it was you built the right way to where that kind of stuff can happen.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm excited to see the defense. I think it's going to be I think it could be a top 5 defense. Darius sounds more out of his head. I mean, that was a really interesting thing that he talked to, to hear him speak today and kind of fell out of love with football last year a little bit, which was odd, but he seems more in a good mental space now.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting season. And I know we say like the dark abyss of the official off season. There's still moves to be made. Ty still out there, Jarvis Landry's still out there, Julio. If you're talking about wideouts, there's still a lot of people who are out there, and Ballard is notorious with making moves a little bit later anyway.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some other stuff to happen. The team is not settled yet, but it's exciting, man. I mean, from the really slow. I mean, I feel like the season in general in 2021. We were really down, you lose those first few games. It's like, man, when are we going to get me and you talking? When are we going to get a win? And then you get to the offseason. It's like, when are they going to do something?
Yeah.
And then patience, man. Patience pays off, and look what they land. And again, Ballard's being hailed as one of the best GMs, if not the best GM in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really good offseason. We got better, and there's no doubt about it. You're going to see a team that now has a quarterback that can win in big moments. Obviously, he's getting older, so he's going to not be the same quarterback he was 10 years ago. But we all kind of saw what Phillip Rivers could bring to the game, right? From a mental standpoint, you just really couldn't fool Phillip Rivers very often. He was just very good at the mental part of the game. I think you get that with Matt Ryan, but with a little more juice. He's got a little more left, and his arm's always been a little bit stronger than Phillips anyways. So you've got a guy who can still challenge teams down the field. So there's not this element of, hey, we're just going to sag underneath and we're just going to stop all of these underneath routes that Matt Ryan's throwing. Now, we know 2 things are going to happen in a Frank Reich offense. He's done this no matter who he's had. He's going to limit turnovers from his quarterback. I mean, if you can talk, I'll say daggum Phillip Rivers into not turning the football over all the time, that's an accomplishment in its own. Carson Wentz, although about 15 cornerbacks dropped wide open interceptions from him this year, he still only managed to have 7 interceptions. So, and he'll get the same out of Matt Ryan. I feel like it'll be limited on the interceptions. He's going to want a quick release, and he's just going to value that football, and he's going to teach him. It's just simply okay to throw the ball away. If you have to throw the football away, we live to see another play. We believe in ourselves. We believe that over a long duration of a football game, 4 quarters, that we're going to outcoach the other team, and we've got the talent to win. And he really hasn't had a security blanket like a Jonathan Taylor, man. I mean, how nice is it as a veteran towards the end of your career, whether it be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, to be able to just go back there and just hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor, man. Like, I mean, that is a nice little thing in your back pocket that, if all else fails, you got a guy who you can hand the ball to, one cut, and he's gone. I mean, he'll take it to the house. So very interested to see how that works out.
Yeah, and I think we'd be remiss to say too. Remember last time he had anything resembling a dynamic run game, they went to the Super Bowl in Atlanta. Anything resembling the running game. I mean, I agree. I was not. I talked to you when we were looking at quarterbacks. Matt Ryan initially, I was like, I wanted younger. I mean, I'm on record. I liked Baker. I like the idea of Baker Mayfield. 100 feet out now from it. I get it 100%. But the more I have watched, and I'm not even talking about like tape and highlights, just him in his press conferences, in his interview on Pat McAfee, or when he's on the radio, or the fact that he put the video out with his kids when they drafted Alec, and just all the things. It's I'm going to steal a quote from the Cleveland Browns. Like, it's 100% an adult in the room and a leader when you hear him. And if for anybody who's watching this, if you want to know what kind of leader is, just go up to the top bar on YouTube after you're done the video, type in Matt Ryan -get set, and just you can go watch that. Like the respect that he demands. So I mean, I'm excited to see what transpires in the next part. I'm excited as we get close to maybe getting a little bit more workouts, some OTAs, seeing them on the field. So obviously we're excited to see, the rookies actually get on the field. And let's just toss out the little the little thing is that we're going to see, very likely we're going to see number 12 play a very prominent role at Lucas Oil this season.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's hope he doesn't retire, in the last preseason game, man, and just like ruin all of our dreams there. But,
crush all the hopes and spirits of the world.
Man, that was tough. But yeah, exciting time, Steven. I'm excited for the season. I know this all seasons it can be a little bit of a grind, but we're gonna have fun, man. We're gonna invite people on. Last year we got people involved. They were interactive. We would love, love, love for people to just comment in the YouTube section. If you would want to just like as a fan reaction, want to come on and do a podcast with us, hey, this is the time. This is the off season. If you've ever just thought to yourself, hey, I'm a Colts fanatic, just like Steven and Zach are, and just once in my life, I'd like to get on camera and I'd like to talk about my point of view and the way that I see things with Indianapolis Colts. Hey, man, comment in YouTube. It's not to say that we can do it right away. We'll try to fit it in. We'll try to get things kind of lined up. We'd like to have a situation where we have 2 or 3 people, and just have a real nice big podcast with several fans. But, man, if you're interested in doing that, hit us up on YouTube. Say, hey, I'm interested in coming on the pod this off season. We'll get with you. We'll communicate with you, whether it be DM via Twitter or whatever. We'll try to line something up. And we'll just talk ball, man. I mean, that's what we do best. That's what we love doing. That's why we have the No Horsing Around podcast.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the fun part, when we get to the off season, and I give credit to you a lot, Zach, when it comes to this, is the idea of bringing people on like that. I mean, we've brought Vinny on, and if you're interested in not just, you're a Colts fanatic, but you're a Colts fanatic and you're like, hey, maybe one day I can start a podcast. We love that too. Like we've helped numerous podcasts kind of get off the ground and help them kind of fine tune and come on here and talk about that. And also, like you said in the comments, if there's something you want us to cover this off season, if there's someone you would like us to try to see if we can have on, now don't say Peyton Manning. Okay, it's not going to happen. But
Peyton said no.
Peyton, the number's out to Peyton. He knows my number. Okay, like he knows where to call. But if there's something you want, you're like, hey, can you guys have, I don't know, we had Laura Steele on last year. Hey, can you guys have Laura on again? It was a lot of fun seeing her. Yeah. We'll reach out. That's the fun thing about the off season is, like you always say, Zach, this is for Colts fans and it's by Colts fans, and we have a blast doing it. That's the thing. Like, if you're not having fun, what's the point? And even though sometimes the team's up and down, it's a blast doing it. It's a blast talking with you guys. We're going to do more live streams during the off season too to really get you guys involved. We're excited about that. And sometimes it may just be Q&A. Hey, just answer, we'll answer questions.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great time too, Steven. It's probably one of my favorite times just because this is the time that everything slows down. There's not as much football. There's not as much storylines, but we get a chance to interact with the people who matter the most. And that's the people who have joined the No Horsing Around family. Like that's my favorite part, getting to know these people, getting to, at Jeff on here on the live stream, when we did the live stream right before the draft, seeing him on there, supporting us, asking questions, just interacting with us, getting to know people like that to join our family and to say, hey, our community has just gotten bigger. Every single time someone subscribes to this channel, we feel like our family's just gotten bigger, and people we would have never met before, people we would have never had the privilege to get to have, I think about Wyatt, who's been a fan pretty much since day one. I think about Brian, Nomadic Brian, who's been a fan since for a long time, man. I mean, like these guys, that's what keeps me going. That's what motivates me to come home from work, get set up and do a podcast, because they're so cool to interact with. It's just fun. And, I can count on those people, being there and being a part of this No Horsing Around family. And it's cool. And I'm excited to see it grow this off season. We're going for, I guess our next goal would be 1.5K. But ultimately we would like to get to that 2K mark, in season. I mean, that 2K would look good. It's season 2. Why wouldn't we have 2,000 subscribers, right? Like, it only makes sense.
2022 season 2,
Exactly.
2K.
Exactly.
Let's make it happen, you guys.
Yeah, let's do it. And I think that this is a fun time for Steven and I. So you guys do not hesitate to reach out. Light us up in the comments. That's my favorite. When we make a video and we get lit up in the comments and people just talk. I love it when you guys talk back and forth and Steven and I are not even commenting. Like, you guys are getting to know each other as well. It's just a great platform. So we're so thankful for YouTube that we're able to do that as well. Steven, I'm in a pretty good spot right now. You feel good about the draft and getting ready to kind of launch into season 2. Any last words?
I love you guys, man. We've spent the better part of the last 5 minutes talking about it. I mean, we wouldn't be able to. Well, I mean, we would. But we'd be talking at the wall. We'd be talking to each other. And the fact alone, we've talked about coming out of the live stream last week. The fact alone that you guys subscribe, you guys watch, and then the fact that during the live stream, someone legitimately paid to just hear us talk. I mean, it's mind blowing for the two of us to think we've reached kind of this, and there's still so much further to go. There's still so much more we can do. I love it. I can't wait. I want to double it. I want to double the family in the next by this time next year.
That would
be
amazing.
I mean, and you guys help with that. You guys help spread the word. You guys help, retweet things or repost things or anything like that. It helps tremendously. And, I don't have anything left to say, but what we've always said at the end of these is that I know that I love you. I know Zach loves you, and we're out of here. We'll talk to you guys next time.